Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on February 11th, 2023 at approximately 4:22 p.m. PST. Now, I return to the world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. But it is going to take time. Now, I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally live by, and the philosophies of life that I talk about are the I did that backwards. But the philosophies I talk about are the same philosophies I personally live by and I personally go day to day through. Now, starting right off the bat, I don't know if Emily's still in the house here, but Emily really did jump the gun on it and was in here with the gold 2 hours before we got started. And I know Shadow was in around about that point. Okay, Shadow and Sam were in about the same point. So yes, they jumped the gun. Okay, so in essence, I'm really a toss-up as to how that kind of marking works. But with that in mind, we're going to give it to you this way. Adam, you're in with the gold. And Susie, welcome aboard. And you come in with the silver. The other two, yes, they definitely get mentioned. Okay, both eternity. Well, both, eternity and shadow. I just don't know if they're still in the house. But I figured, I've talked about this whole thing that we can look at fear, that we can continue living by fear if we would like. Eternity, how you doing? And Shadow, as a matter of fact, they both are in the house. So we do a little bit of rearranging here. Sitting waiting for 2 hours. That's amazing, Eternity and Shadow. And I do have to hope that comes up on track where it's supposed to. What do I got going on here? Because I cannot see. Okay. I've talked about the option that we all have. We can live in fear of the past. We can absolutely live that way. But here's the real kicker to it. Okay. Here's the real kicker to the whole thing. If you choose to live in fear, you may not be able to move forward very well. Now, I'd have to go back in and see what it actually said. Now, but anyway, there was something said, and I'm presuming that I made a misstatement. But when you're living in fear, courage is not an absence of fear. Courage is action in spite of fear. Okay. Now, I've talked about this whole idea of people being mad, and I keep trying to tell people there is a way that you can take any negative. How you doing, Joe? And Joe, you were in with honorable mention. I've always held that if you can find a positive thing behind a negative event, you can turn that to your advantage. I'm just looking at, Joe's just going, I'm watching The Godfather Part 2 on Roku right now. Now there's a plug for Roku. But, no, I never did see The Godfather Part 2. I saw The Godfather. Interesting show. But I've always held that if you can find a positive way, if you can find a positive thing to pull out of a negative, you can make a lot of headway. Now, anger is one of those really, really annoying big problems. Okay. And that anger, that's something I've always fought with. And I've mentioned it before. My vocal anger can get the better of me. But if you can find a way to look at something that has really set you off, to motivate you to change something in your life for the better, or for that matter, to dig up the courage to, in an appropriate way, change something in somebody else's life that you're saying that you're, so to speak, responsible for. Okay, this is a good thing. Anger itself is a problem. I've had people, I remember one chap that I had, by his own admission, he lost his temper in a bar and beat a man to death. He served his time. He came out with 4 degrees that he paid for, hired 40 people on the spot, and went to work. Now, I'm strongly recommending you don't use that path. But in case you couldn't tell, my throat's a little screwy. Part of that might be that I woke up, about an hour ago. I found out I'm sleeping a whopping 4 to 5 hours a night. Okay. But the problem is I'm sleeping, 2.5 hours to start with, and then an hour to an hour and a half afterwards. Okay, a few hours later. But, if you can find a way, take a look at whatever's really setting you off, whatever's really making you mad, and don't lash out, but find something that you can use that to motivate you for. Okay. Anger itself, basically it boils down to uncontrolled passion. When you can find a way to really turn things around and put that passion to use in a constructive fashion, you will find you feel so much better about the anger side of things. Okay. Really important from that standpoint. By the way, just so you guys are aware, hey Susie, how you doing? Well, that's convenient. Susie's just saying, I'm just at the end of a liver detox. They say anger is stored in the liver. And I can work with it. I'm in the middle of finding ways to really correct my entire health. Okay. Most of that is being done for me, not by a detox, other than throwing out stuff I don't have any use for, but by changing my eating. So, of course, this morning I woke up at 1 o'clock. And what did I go and do? Well, it seemed like the thing to do. So I made an entire slow cooker worth of a rice pilaf. Right. Well, no. I guess you'd call it beef fried rice. Threw in rice, threw in a number of different vegetables and beef. Did this at 1 o'clock in the morning, got it all done and running, and then rolled over and went back to bed. Yeah, well, you got to remember there, Joe, with The Godfather, much as he was a violent individual in a lot of ways, religion was a very big part of their life. Okay. Which is kind of ironic when you think the religion is supposed to talk about peace, about loving your neighbor and what have you. So, I'm looking at this, and I've looked at the way things are written in a lot of ways, and I did find you find one thing that you can use anger to motivate you for. It's extreme uncontrolled passion is really what anger boils down to. Okay. And if you can take that unfocused passion and find something to focus on with it, you can make incredible headway. Like I was just going through today, the other thing I did this morning, right, was I went through inventory and found out how much I've got in the way of the books I've got listed on the net for sale. Every one of them. The smallest one I've got, and I'm in the middle of getting a second printing done, which is why I haven't ordered anymore. I'm down to 7 of the original Races of the Worlds. Okay. As soon as I get that done, and the speed things have been selling, will I sell them? Absolutely. People want to buy them? Absolutely. There's no problem there. But I am working on getting the second printing out. But take your anger, whatever you're upset about. Maybe you're upset about the way the government in your country is running. Maybe you're upset about the way that a given corporation has been treating people. Might not even be you. Okay. I mean, I take a look at the frustration that I have towards other companies, the way they've been dealing with things. And I'm going, there's got to be something to be done elsewhere, in a different fashion. Hey Philip, how you doing? Whoop, missed you. Football, welcome aboard. Glad you could make it. And Philip, how you doing? Hope your day's been going well. Today is Saturday. Hate to tell you this, Philip, but Saturday started quite some time ago, at least in my end of the world. As in, well, we're 4:30, making it 16 and a half hours ago. But it's been a weird Saturday. Anyway, find what is upsetting you, what you're not content with, and really take a look at using that as a motivator. Okay. Like, in case you're wondering, I've got sheets of paper all over here. Now, what is this? Oh, yes. I've got to get that moved over. So what we do here, put that over there. This is why I've got the extra one. See, one of the things that frustrates me is I got too many things going on in a lot of ways. Now, have you ever done this? You make a note for yourself, write the thing down on paper, just like you've been meaning to do. Put the note down, or it's even better when you put a phone number down. Somebody gives you a phone number, they phone you, you write the phone number down, and you carry on with the call, carry on with the day. Only when you go back to go through your notes and what have you, there's a phone number, but you've got no indication of who said phone number is. Okay. I still haven't found that book of mine, by the way, guys. But use your anger as a motivator, because all anger really boils down to is, yeah, you can do that too, Philip. I've done that before. I made the mistake one day of spilling coffee on my keyboard. I'll tell you, that's a lot worse than spilling it on one note. But considering anger is unfocused passion. You're frustrated about something, gets very unfocused, and you blow a gasket. I do it, you do it, at least I suspect you do it. Okay, maybe you're one of these lucky few that never loses your temper. Okay, I have never met anybody that's never lost their temper, ever. Okay, but this doesn't mean it cannot happen. But you take that passion. If I were to ask you, and I would love some response in the chat room here, if there were one thing that you would like to see start changing, or that you would like to know how to start changing, either in your life or in society on the whole, society, corporation, doesn't matter. Okay. I'd love to hear what the big concerns are that you guys have that we really have to start focusing on in order to change this world for the better. Adam's just saying he was talking to a coworker this morning who almost blew his top on our boss. And this can be all kinds of complications, especially if the boss takes it the wrong way. So from your standpoint, one of the things that you really have to look at, and this is why I'm asking, if we're going to turn this world around, it would be an idea to get an idea of what you see as the biggest things that need changing, so we can start working on this as a group. Because this is not just up to me, it's not just up to you. But the more we know about it, then the more focused we can get. And in that issue, we can finally start making things happen the way they should. And we can start making things happen in a functional fashion. Let's do this. We're just gonna, while I'm doing that, Gotta put that on here. See, what do we got? Football, that is a pain in the neck. And that we can absolutely, wish you all the best with it. I will tell you this, and I've mentioned this to you before. You're following, obviously, all the normal protocols. But when you've got a moment to yourself, okay, just literally, even while you're sitting here, literally run one thought through your head. Heal. Okay. You can also, something that can enhance that. Take your hand. Doesn't matter whether it's your right one or your left one. Put it palm down on something heavy that normally sits on the floor. Okay. And recommend not the chair you're sitting on. Okay. Even if it's comfortable. But put your hand on something that normally sits on the floor and visualize that excess energy, that excess negativity, running out of your body, much like water out of a faucet. Okay. Now, the reason I said run that thought through your head, heal, you don't have to know where the C19 is. Okay. Your body already knows. And all you're doing is giving it a direction to remove that problem. Now, I'm one of the lucky few, or one of the stubborn few, I don't know. Okay. I've never been diagnosed with it. Some people said I might have had it a while ago. If I did, it didn't manifest in normal fashion. But I don't get laid up with much. I stick to simple heart attacks or stroke. By the way, stroke, pain in the neck. Did I miss somebody up here? No. You're more than welcome there, football. The reality of life is this. If we can take a look at the way the world is running and what you're seeing as the biggest problem. Okay. Well, I absolutely agree with you there, Philip. This idea of you can't turn me down because of whatever reason. And there are some of the stupidest reasons people have been pushed through into a job. But I absolutely agree with you. A competency test is absolutely critical. I mean, it's critical in all jobs, but especially in life and death. Now, that being said, for those of you that that own a company or that run a company, develop your own. We don't have to wait for the government to come out with some sort of test. You've got the ability to do it yourself. Come up with a static test that you can check would-be applicants. And this is really important, as Philip was saying, regarding this whole idea of life and death jobs. The first one that comes to mind is the people that are working, and these people have nerves of steel. Pardon the focus on that. But the people that are building the steel frames for buildings, okay, they've got to have a minimum competency. And in my eyes, not only do they have to be able to weld properly, but they better have decent balance. Because I'll tell you, falling off a one-story building when you're roofing is painful. Falling off a 20-story building when you're welding is downright uncomfortable. Usually fatal, I think. Thank you so much for that, Susie. Susie's just put in here. She goes, please hit the like button. And, absolutely, I really do appreciate it. The reality is, I get more support coming here than I did most of my childhood. Yes, my family ran interference on bullying. But, well, you do realize football, like football's just saying heights are scary. I've always held the fall kills very few people. It's that sudden stop when you get to the ground floor that causes all the havoc. And I was looking into it because people say it's better to fall into water. And I watched a documentary one day that addressed that situation. If you drop somebody, if somebody falls, 200 feet, and I forget what measurement they did, but we'll just put it at 200. Okay, and they tested this out, and they what they did was they dropped a full-size pig dead already from the same height. When you drop it from a couple hundred feet from the air, the skin breaks and the whole thing, and the guy's dead. When you drop it from the same height over water, the only functional difference is instead of it breaking the skin open, it breaks every bone and ruptures every organ in your body. But it does keep it all packaged. So you've got these neat little squeezable pork. And I'm thinking that's just a wrong way to put that. But if we when we're looking at these minimum requirements, you'd think that it would be common sense. It's a life or death situation. We've got to have tests, not to find out what gender you are, not to find out who you pray to. Those aren't questions that are relevant to whether you can do the job. Okay, doesn't even matter who you crawl into bed with. When you're dealing with a job, what matters is whether you're capable. Okay. And this is just something that as individuals, we can absolutely start talking about it. And that's all key. You start talking about these complications and people will start, in time, people will shift gears and they'll start modifying it. But if you happen to have a company or you happen to run one, okay, you don't have to wait for the government to come up with a test. Come up with it yourself. Make sure it is non-discriminatory and that it focuses on, can you do the job? You don't hire a welder if they don't know how to weld. Okay, why would you possibly hire a carpenter if he can't swing a hammer? Or why would you hire somebody as a fireman if they panic in the face of fire? These are just simply things. It does. Philip put an emoji here of a hang glider. And I've been asked by a number of people why I don't hang glide. And I'm thinking, number one is I've already ridden a tornado. Okay. And no, I did not lasso it like Pecos Bill. Okay. But I've already been picked up by a tornado. It takes all that fun out of things. Okay. But, something like that I can understand. Skydiving, getting out of a perfectly good aircraft, never had any interest in it. Mind you, I have told people, if the plane runs into trouble, absolutely slap a parachute on me, shove me out the door, and it might be an idea to pull the ripcord when you do, just so I manage to pull it. From my standpoint, like I've mentioned there, Philip, I am in the process of getting things organized, and this is one of the reasons. This is called self-serving, come to think of it. Okay, but a competency test is absolutely imperative. Okay, there are a lot of people that they really enjoy starting up a company, or they, and I know that Shadow and Son have seen this, and some of you others. Some people really enjoy either tabletop gaming or on the computer, the process of getting something up and running. And then you want to do it again. And these are what are called serial entrepreneurs. They start a company, get it running, and as soon as it's running smoothly, they sell the thing and start another company. Okay, from my standpoint, I'm looking at it this way. I right now am tight, very tight on money, but I am, so much for English. That might have something to do with the fact I was slicing ham all morning. But, I went to the grocery store, talk about a sidetrack. Went to the grocery store this morning, picked up a couple of small ham, right? And picked up a kilo of ham for, I think, roughly, no, almost 2 kilo. Okay, in other words, about 5 pounds of ham managed to get for $10. All I was picking it up for was to have sandwich meat, right? Now, I got the 5 pounds for about $10. If I'd have gone to the deli and got them to slice it, it would have been $10. It would have been $10 for essentially for a quarter pound. Okay, so I'm thinking $10 for 2 pounds for 5 pounds is a really good deal, and all it took was my going home and slicing it myself. Okay, when you're dealing now, the competency test isn't just for life or death, in my opinion. Okay, if you've got somebody that you're striving to, hire, have a way of testing not what jobs they've done before. Realistically, who cares what they did before? Yes, certainly. Have they worked in, for instance, in construction? Have they worked in construction before? Certainly. Did they? That matters. But do not worry about whether or not they got fired or whether or not they walked off the job too much. Walking off the job matters. Getting fired, there's always two sides to that. What did they do that was wrong? Okay. And why, what happened that got them fired? Was it actually them or was there a conflict? So when they come in, you look at it and go, okay, this person has done these jobs. Now, they're all short term. Why are they short term? Test him on competency. See if the person can actually draw a straight line or can read a schematic. Okay, if they cannot read a blueprint or if they cannot follow orders, having them working on site might be problematic, depending on the job you're hiring them for. Okay, but I'm looking at things right now with the empire I'm looking at building. Okay, and yes, I do call it an empire. I don't have any interest in just barely getting by anymore. I'm pretty certain that most of you aren't really that interested in just getting by anymore either. But, I'm looking at this going, okay, we've got politicians going into office that are clearly not capable of running their own stuff. Never mind the country. Okay. Absolutely. Although, Phil's just saying sometimes an excellent musician is hopeless at construction or vice versa. Although I will tell you, it was an absolute symphony when I watched this one building go up. Okay. Years ago, I watched a main hall for the Jehovah's Witnesses go up. Now, they must have had 200 carpenters on site working together. But I'll tell you, the sound of those walls going up, 7 minutes to a main wall. Okay. But the sound of the hammers in unison was incredible. It was like listening to a real professional drummer. Adam's just asking, what about someone who has very little experience but is interested in learning? Attitude matters. Okay. If they don't, this is why you take a look at, first of all, who they are. I mean, that is an excellent question there, Adam. So many people go, I want somebody that is only this age but has this much experience. and nobody wants to hire them. I'll tell you, I will take somebody that is willing to learn and has virtually no experience over somebody that has decades of experience and no interest in learning. Okay, it is way better the other way of looking at it. But if they're interested in learning, if they're open to learning, whether they've got 15 years experience doesn't make any difference. The attitude and the energy they're willing to put into it is what matters more. Okay, it's the same as the best worker in the world. If they're constantly late to the job, isn't of much use to you. Okay, I watched somebody the other day actually, or found out about it. They had some 20 years in working in a restaurant. 20 years experience. Now this is hard to come by. Okay, but the person was invariably late for their shift. They ended up getting fired. Again, it boils down to a combination of factors. I love these people. They've got this new thing coming out on the internet where they go, we've designed a fail-safe method of recruiting, of interviewing potential employees. I'm telling you, there is no such thing that I've ever heard of as fail-safe. Because you look at the competency, look at their willingness to learn, and look at their experience. Okay, now I will tell you, all the willingness to learn in the world. For instance, there is an illness called dyscalculia, which is literally, it is literally, you read your words backwards, or you read your numbers backwards. No matter how much they're willing to learn, with that illness, they are not capable, they are not competent to go working in many financial institutions. There are ways around it, and that's where that willingness to work with things is. But the other side of this whole thing with competency is that you have to be looking at things. You, as the employer, also have to be willing to adapt the way you're doing things. Exactly, Adam. And, the stupid part is that those are being phased out, it seems. It's like, you want that job, well, you're willing to do it for less, so we'll hire you. I'm telling you, that method doesn't work, in case you hadn't noticed, by the current state of the economy. By the current state of our world. For literally, and Phillips just stated, we've had these apprenticeships for tens of thousands of years. Okay, in order to make sure that people get the competency, get the confidence, and have the skills to carry on. Because I will tell you, the one thing about being an apprentice is it will help you. It will turn around and put you on track so that you can train the next batch as well. It's very much like training kids. There is no apprenticeship for parenting. There are all kinds of people that have had experience with it. Okay, but what we are, as it was put the other day, what we are raising when it comes to raising kids is we're not raising kids. We're raising adults. Okay, Mr. L, how you doing? Glad you could join us. But this is why I say, if you're aiming at doing something, if you're aiming at opening the door to some sort of skill, to some sort of task, talk to somebody that has done it successfully. Those are the people that can help the most. Okay, when my father was alive, if I wanted to talk to somebody about work ethic, man, would I ever have gone and talked to him? Okay, it didn't matter what was going on. He was off to work on time, regular as clockwork, did his job. He had an interesting quirk, though. He was an aircraft mechanic. And if you know anything about military aircraft, my father used to work on Buffaloes, right? But what he'd do is he'd do the job, he'd work his time there, and when he went to go home for the weekend, If he wasn't finished working on that specific plane, he would back it into the hangar, leaving a 1/4-inch maneuverability on either wingtip. Nobody could get it out of the hangar to work on the plane he was working on. So he made sure it was done to his specs. So he got pretty good at that side of it, but nobody could get it back out of the hangar until he got back to work. But you always talk to somebody. Yeah, and Mozart was another one of these people. You can't do something, you can't play. I think I'm trying to figure. No, Beethoven was blind. I think Mozart had a problem as well. But I will tell you, regardless of what your holdup is, regardless of what hindrance you have, if you've got the willingness to learn and the drive to do so, there is nothing stopping you except you from doing it. There's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of people that'll tell you, you can't do that. Okay, here's a cute thought for you. I've got 7 books in print. I was diagnosed mentally retarded when I was a child. My parents were told point blank, if he ever learns to tie his shoes, he's ahead of the game. So here I am, apparently mentally retarded, and yet I've got 7 books in print. And yeah. Philip's just confirming Beethoven went deaf. I thought he was born deaf, but let's face it, my memory is not something I write polite things about. Actually, my memory's perfect. It's my recall that's a bit of a shambles on occasion. But when you're looking at the way people treat each other, and this is why I say, treat people the way you desire to be treated. If you desire to be yelled at and screamed at about the littlest thing, absolutely do that to the people around you. I'm sure they'll comply. But if you desire for people to treat you decently, treat them the way you personally desire to be treated. Because I will tell you, it doesn't guarantee you'll get treated properly, but it does stack the deck in your favor. For me, I look at people, I do my best to be polite to people, to be congenial. There are times when I fail miserably. Fortunately, I don't go out in public much, so I don't have to worry about it too terribly much. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that was like Michelangelo. Michelangelo was a phenomenal artist. And when he was asked one day how he managed to carve such incredible sculptures, he said, I don't carve anything. He said, he says, the statue's already there. I just knock away everything that isn't the statue. And this is the same philosophy I use. This is the same philosophy I use regarding if your life is not going the way you personally desire it to go. Take a look at whatever is holding you up, whatever is holding you back, and start shifting it. Start altering the things around you in order to accommodate that. In order to make certain that you're moving that stuff out of the way that's holding you back. Because once you eliminate all the things you're not content with, all you'll have left is the things that you do desire to have. If you're not content with your life, and I see people in here too, periodically, I don't like my life at all. Well, pick one thing about it. Doesn't matter what it is. Pick one thing about it. And you may have been putting it off forever and a day, and get mad at yourself. And again, the anger comes up. It's like, why haven't I done this? Why am I still doing this same stupid thing? Well, the same stupid thing is probably, and in more cases than not from what I've seen, it's a question of you didn't get off your tail and do it. This is why people end up in a mess. I don't want to deal with that right now, so I'm not going to, and maybe it'll go away. Bad news, things don't just go away. I'd love to say they do, but that is not the way it quite works. Okay, so you take a look at it. If you're mad at yourself because your life isn't going quite the way you desire it to go, it is time to really look in the mirror and go, I'm going to change it. Now, it's funny, I was on and I cannot for the life of me remember what documentary it was. Sooner or later, I'll get word of it and I'll let you guys know. But I did a live section for TV, okay, regarding various races, okay, specifically regarding reptilians and some of the feline races, as well as the mantis race, the Kleeklok. Okay, now because of doing that interview, I've been getting questions to clarify a few things, which I'm taking that information because they're asking questions that that I never thought about, but they're detailed questions because we're talking about cultures. Okay, now if somebody asks you about the culture you're in, let me ask you this: if you look at the people in general, okay, and you look at your country, your city, your town, wherever you are, what is the one thing that really stands out about the people in your community? In my case, my community really is pretty much the apartment building I live in. Okay. And if I take a look at it, the one thing that really stands out is we've got an absolute mix of different nationalities. Okay. And different places people have come from. But the one thing that really stands out is, I kid you not, most of them will say hello to you when they see you in the lobby. Whether they know you by name or not is not a relevant concern. Most of the people will hold the door open for people coming in or going out for that matter. This is something that stands out in my community. Okay. When I get outside of my house, the one thing that I see a staggering number of people doing is I'm looking at them going, where in tarnation did you possibly get a driver's license? I was nearly hit in the middle of a parking lot by somebody doing just shy of 30 miles an hour. Yeah, Philip's just saying Mozart's was an issue in the executive function center of the brain. The question is this: do you want mediocre work on time, or to help people produce profound work pushing deadlines? I'd like to think there's a balance point there. But from my standpoint, that brings to mind a sign that I used to see in a company that was here before it got bought. It was a company called West Kootenai Power. Oh no, my apologies. West Kootenai Power had a cute sign. They said, "To err is human. To really foul things up requires a computer." But there was a mechanic shop in town that used to have a sign on the back wall, on the back wall of the front lobby, and it said, "Fast service, good work, low prices. Pick two." Okay, because I absolutely agree. I would rather have quality work, and I'm one of these people that will pay a higher dollar for quality work or for work from somebody that I trust than to just get the job done. My dad used to joke about it. He'd go, he says, I'm really amazed, but planes are put in the air by the lowest bidder. And I'm thinking, that's a great thought, but you can see where safety might be a problem. Raven, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The reality of things, if we desire this world to change, okay, and I'm a bad one for this. I get so many emails in that are just absolute garbage, right? Especially from my website. There are so many sites, or so many messages I get from that website that are, oh, use this bot to make money. Well, I'm telling you, if those bots worked as well as what they claim, we would not have any poor people on the planet. Absolutely, Philip. You know, the neat thing and what I found with CEOs, okay, and I've dealt with a lot of them. What I found with CEOs is CEOs don't, and the the manager of a company or the owner of a company does not have to know how to do everything in that company. He has to know how to find the people that know how to do that job. And then frankly, he's got to be willing to do said job. They've got to be willing to do said job. Ultimately, this is very much the case. When a company is running properly, when a family, when a home is running properly and people work together, nobody feels overwhelmed. Okay, and I've seen it literally thousands of times where you'll have one parent or one child that does most of the work. And they end up getting in the long run, feeling rather bitter about the setup. Okay, this is why it is so important to get an idea of what you're aiming at. I'm in the process right now, okay, of redefining exactly where my focal point is going to be. Okay, as far as how to make my life turn around for the better. And I'm still, quite frankly, at 59, I am still learning. I'm still remembering how to make things happen. But what I found is the people that claim to know what they're doing are seldom the ones that are actually doing it. Now, are seldom the ones that actually can do it. Okay. There's an old saying that goes, those that can do and those that can't teach, which is a scary thought when you think about it. Raven. Oh, absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that, Raven. See, and that's where the flaw was, because everybody failed, so you had to do the homework. And Philip's just saying in group projects in school, he usually had to do the other people's homework. And this is the problem. Okay, because with a group project, either the job gets done or nobody gets paid. This applies so well to construction. Okay, this applies so absolutely perfectly with construction. You've got to have a job done. Okay, but the job of the site manager is to motivate the people, to make sure they're doing their job. And that's where that competency thing comes in. Okay. I'm going through like what I'm doing with my company right now, because I'm bound and determined to turn things around and within the next few years be sitting right on top of the world, assuming I'm not dead again. Although that seems to be an inconvenience. Okay. But I've got to get really focused on just exactly where I'm going to be making money, where things are going to happen. And my only interest in money, in all fairness, is keeping a roof over my head. Now, right now, I've got a few months because of what I've got that I'm sitting on. But when my brother's estate comes clear, as long as I'm handling things properly, I'm good for years. Because I only require right now, well, once I get the car paid off, I'll be able to live on less than, I'll be able to live on less than $2,000 a month. Okay, more to the point, I'll be able to exist on that. But I'm looking at things from a very different perspective. Okay, I'm looking at it going, I don't desire to just exist anymore. And I encourage you guys to stop focusing on, well, I can get by on this. You probably can. Okay. I was told one day that that the financial advisor had no idea how I was doing it. Right. He says, I'm not going to tell you can't do it. He says, clearly you are. But I am in the middle. Actually, I literally stopped working on the plan in order to come onto the air today. Okay. Because what I've got to do is make certain that the plan that I've got covers the income, concentrates on growth, and lets me do my job my way. Okay. And clearly relying on people and relying on corporations ain't going to do the job for me. Okay. But I reached a point here a while ago, and this is what brought about the whole concept of how can you take your anger and put that to use as a motivator. Okay. One of the things that got me really moving down this road now. Okay. Yeah. Oh, Philip's just adding in here. You reminded me of some of the of some of the famous humorists. The and playwright Oscar Wilde said, "Oh, something. Everyone who is incapable of learning has taken to teaching," and sadly, that's very much the case. You know, this is why, and this is where frustration can get the better of me. And I came to the conclusion that, okay, there is no question that at present, I do not know much about the way computers work, and I've really tried to figure them out. But thus far, to no effect. I have fortunately found some people that are actually capable and willing to do the job properly. Sad to say, they don't work for a corporation or a company. Okay. But I took my frustration with the world and went, okay, I've been sitting back and I've been hoping that this species would wake up and smell the coffee. And I got thinking about it, and it was funny than heck because I was talking to somebody, it was actually in the chat room here. I laid out a bunch, and I forget who made the comment. Okay. But I laid out a bunch of circumstances about the way people treat each other. Okay. And the context was this. I said, okay, what do you call a person? If you're dealing with people, what do you call a person that turns around and tells you, do exactly what I say, or I'm going to take all of your good stuff away from you, and I'm going to make your life absolutely miserable? Now, I'm going to pose the same question here and see what kind of an answer I get. But what is the term you use for that kind of person? Regardless of their age, regardless of their education or finances. If somebody is looking at you and going, you do things my way, okay. Now, and that's the same answer that other people gave me the last time. But I do agree with you, Adam. It does sound a lot like government. But let me ask you this. When you look at most of the religions, okay, and I shouldn't say the religions, but most of the pastors standing in front of a church, okay, in front of church, in front of a temple, in front of a support group, okay, most of them are telling the people in there, and if you're going to a church or you're going to a temple or a support group, and the person leading the group is saying, you must do it this way or you will be miserable. You will be punished. Okay. Take a look at how many of the primary religions do exactly the same thing and then turn around and tell you to worship the person. Okay. Now, do not get me wrong. Churches are necessary. That spiritual support, that sense of family. Okay. But when you take that concept, if somebody telling you, do this or I'm going to make your life miserable, if that is a bully, why would you possibly worship them, much less respect them. Now, I see it in families all the time. Okay. Thankfully, I can honestly say that is not the way I try and run mine. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. Lord knows if I was perfect, I wouldn't be stuck on this mud ball. Actually, in all fairness, in my case, that was curiosity. But when we live in fear, what we end up doing is giving up our right, giving up our ability to make our own life better. Yeah, I like this. Philip also goes, yeah, Philip's given us a couple of other names. Grinch, Scrooge, Jerk. But as you saw, and this is the silly part, you see the movie The Grinch, right? Or Scrooge. These people learned to be better by watching and by seeing what was going on. Usually by one heck of a slap in the head. Now, I met 10 years ago now, because I didn't see him this year. 10 years ago, I ran into a gentleman that was an absolute bully to me in school. As an adult, he is one of the nicest people that you can meet. Well, probably not one of the nicest, but he was an absolute dream to deal with when I ran into him, a decade ago at my 30-year grad reunion. Okay. I'm debating whether I'll go to my 50th. The 40th wasn't of much use. But if anger is brewing inside you, what happened with me, and this is why my mouth has gone into drive in certain areas, is I'm sitting here and I'm watching hundreds of thousands of people sitting down, watching people, being told, fear everything on the planet. Absolutely fear everything. Or they're sitting down watching somebody go, you've got to buy all this stuff because this new electronic toy is the best of the best. Now it's costing me $4, and it cost me $4 to make the thing, but instead of paying the staff to actually make this item so I can make a lot of money, I'm going to turn around and take all the jobs out of the area I'm living in, put them over where I can get the people to do it for a penny and a half, and I can make more money. Please buy this incredibly expensive, quite often, sadly, faulty stuff, and give me money for it. Okay. Now, I'm telling you, from my standpoint, you really want to change the economy of a country. Okay. And I would, who do we go? Oh, Lacey, how you doing? Glad you could join us. One of the best things for turning the economy of any country or any province around, or any state, take a look at the industries you've got. Okay. Now, I was talking to somebody the other day. What did they say? Oh, apparently the government, and I don't know whether this was Canada or the States, but apparently there was a guy on the news, there was a farmer on the news that is literally throwing out 30,000, and so it's got to be Canada, 30,000 liters, basically 30,000 quarts of milk a day. Okay. A day or a month? No, it must be a month. Okay, but he's throwing out 30,000 gallons, of milk every month because he has sold his quota. Now we're talking, there is food shortages all over the place. But if one farmer is dumping 30,000 gallons of milk into the drains, there is something wrong with the policies of the country. Okay. And, I looked at this and went, how can we stand by and say nothing about it? Okay. Oh, Philip is going, I think my bully had a crush on me because he regularly pointed out female members of my family who I most resemble and let me know how attracted to them he was. that would not be a surprise. And depending on your age there, Philip, in my day, that would have been very abnormal. In today's world, that's quite a common problem. Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You do seem to do that a lot, Quanta, there. You know that, Nathan? Whenever Nathan comes into the show, the first thing he's telling us is I'm listening while driving. So clearly Nathan's primary job is either a job or a pastime. Clearly he's in his vehicle a lot. But I got so annoyed with this idea that this one farmer, and Lord knows there are staggering numbers of farmers, but if one farmer is dumping 30,000 gallons of milk, okay, on a regular basis, if one is doing that, why, pray tell, are you running into a food shortage in that area? Okay. The reality is milk doesn't have, and there is no shortage of milk production. So why, pray tell, are our companies saying, no, you can't buy that, you can't sell that, we've got too much. We've got a food shortage going on. You don't have too much. My son, and the reality of it is I've seen way too many people where bullying is taking place in the schools and the kids are staying home. And I just found out about one the other day where the school looks at it and goes, the kid that's doing the bullying doesn't know what he's doing, so we can't be hard on him. Yeah, frankly, you really can. Okay, if it's being done wrong. And, when we talk about this idea of it being life or death situation, if you're being bullied at the school so badly that children are dropping out of school, are hurting themselves, then the damage is being done. It may not be life or death for that individual, okay, but it's certainly going to be life or death for society on the whole. Okay. Oh, there you go, Nathan. Nathan's just going, that's my weekend, all driving and fixing stuff. But I took a look at it, and the fact that these teachers, that the body that is supposed to be taking care of the kids, are going, no, we insisted that this child gets permitted into the school, but he doesn't have to adhere to the same rules that everybody else does. That is a life or death situation. This is one of those things that we have to look at as a society and push for change. Okay. Problem is that especially where it comes to the schools, if you walk into a school and you make a fuss about the way things are not being done, it is the child that will get retaliated upon. Okay. Now, admittedly, when I found out what was going on with my own son, he made a comment about it, and I grew up under bullies, so it hit me completely left of center. And what ended up happening was, I took I reacted in a very inappropriate fashion, but right before he had said that, he goes, I guess it's too late to say I don't want to go to school. And by then, the bus would have already been outside, and I'm like, well, you didn't, at this point, you should be going. Then he makes a comment, and I lost it. Like I said, I am not perfect by any means. But as soon as he was out the door, I calmed down, and I thought about it. I phoned him up. I said, look, kiddo, I should never have done that, not with what's going on. That said, I said, if you want to come home, I'll come and get you. And that's, yeah, I do agree with you there, Philip. And you are right. It does take longer for someone to give up and take their own life in most cases than it does for other things. I mean, you make a mistake if you make a mistake as a pilot, you're taking out a whole pile of people. Okay. And they don't have any control over it. But I was reading about one just the other day. It was brought back to my attention where there was an accident in the air. It had nothing to do with the pilot, except the plane got hit by a lightning bolt and blew it in half. One person survived it. They really should. And in my case, with my son, because of my outlook on the school system, I've looked at it and gone, they're not teaching him the methods to deal with things. And this applies across the board. Okay, it's not just my son that doesn't get taught properly. In the school system today, people are so worried about whether or not their kid is being treated absolutely properly and absolutely has the freedom to do what they will. When I was growing up, okay, and I'm sure people my age knew about that and had the same experience. When I was growing up, if somebody had an allergy, they were taught how to use it, how to deal with it. The teachers were taught how to deal with it, and the parents were taught how to deal with it. In today's world, and this happened when my eldest was in school. One kid had an allergy to kiwi, so what they did was said nobody can bring kiwi into the school at all. Okay, these kinds of things, I'm looking at it going, if you focus on the little thing, on the little problem, and you don't deal with it, it becomes an international tragedy. This is where society has gone. Now, what I went and did was I looked at and went, okay, this is all annoying me. So I can sit back and say absolutely nothing. At which point, if I'm not saying anything, if you're not saying anything, okay, you're essentially giving the go-ahead for that situation to continue. And it will continue until it is altered. Something else there, Philip. You've stated that kids should get to take a mental day off when they need to. The answer is they should. So should employees and managers for that matter. The danger is when it becomes easier to take the day off than to deal with the problem. That's where you can end up with a real complication. And yeah, well, I appreciate that, Philip. I don't actually know much about Warren. From my standpoint, it's very simple. If your child does not have the skills to cope, they need to take a break. They've got to be able to reassess it and work it out. Certainly give them tools. Same as your employees. Give them the tools to make things happen. Okay, I love the way that I found out, and I do recommend if you run a company, okay, if you manage a company, and this is something I'm doing with my own, okay, get an idea of where you desire that company to go. Now, okay, and you do this with your home as well. You go, this is the way I desire this company to run, because a home and a company are done exactly the same way. Okay, you think about it. Okay. Yeah, you notice that too, Raven? If you think about it, in a home, you have to worry about maintenance, you have to worry about your bills, you've got to worry about your mortgage or your rent. Businesses have the same thing. You also have to worry about whether or not people are eating. You may not be supplying food for people in a business, but you've got to make sure they've got time to eat comfortably. Which, by the way, an hour to grab a bite to eat is not bad. That's lots of time, given that they can have access to the food. Okay. The other thing that you have to look at, though, is if you're not giving them, what the heck? How about if you don't back into the car? What do you think? If you think about it, if we don't make the effort to straighten this out now, okay, what kind of a disaster are we leaving behind for the next generation? And yes, you as a listener may only be 20 years old, okay, but you're still working on exactly the same thing, okay? The whole concept of life here boils down to leave the world in a better state than when you got here. And the question I have for you is, are you actually, in your mind, doing that? Now, I know most of the people in this room, in this chat room, really are. Philip is just saying he always points to his certificate from Dale Carnegie training. After his formal education, he studied at Dale Carnegie Center. He became a teacher to make sure he remembered it all. Okay. Well, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, they really do. What's happening at this point is kids and adults alike are not being told how to think. They're being told what to think. Okay. And that's why this funny little book. Yep. This funny little book came out. Okay. This talks about how to turn your life, not whether or not your life is happy. Okay. I do not profess to be able to look at your world and go, this is the way that the world should be. Your world should work this way. Understand the term should. Right off the bat, that becomes my opinion of what your life ought to look like. I'm not the one living your life. Okay. When you go into a church and they say, if you do not do this, you will be punished. God didn't have anything to do with telling you what you should do. What he had to do with was going, here is a way to make your life better. Pick up the pieces and do it. Okay. And I'm telling you, picking up the pieces in your own life, how you got to where you are. Okay, there are all kinds of ways you could have got there. In some people's cases, it's a literal accident that all of a sudden their life gets turned upside down. Okay. Well, yeah. And, the thing there, Phillips going, Phillips has just said, I always used the teacher's bathroom or went during class. It was the only way I could, it was the only way I was physically capable of going. I like the increase of single-use bathrooms. Absolutely they're a good thing. There are some danger points to them, but when we're talking about the other issue that has now come up, if you're looking at single-use generic bathrooms, okay, that's great. But right now we've separated, and I do agree with separating it into male and female, but the current trend, you're going to have a long building of washrooms. Okay, if you're trying to separate in today's world the bathrooms by gender, we have let this society degrade to the point that you will have over 50 bathrooms in every public building. Okay. And yes, I realize that's a bit of an extreme, but this is how stupid things have gotten. And again, if nothing is said about them, then nothing will be done about them. Just because something's said about them, by the way, does not mean that that things will be done. Sometimes it takes an absolute disaster for people to really wake up and smell the coffee, as it were. I understand. Hey, Dave, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Actually, I don't know if you came in earlier. I've seen you in here a couple of times, but I do hope your day is going well. We have let society get to an absolutely stupid level of segregation. Now, it was appalling to me back it was actually my last lifetime. This lifetime, it's pretty much the same thing. That people will look at somebody's color and go, oh, you're a lesser person. Or they look at somebody's gender, male, female. Oh, you're female. You shouldn't be paid what I'm getting paid because I'm male. This also translates into I should get paid more, but I should get paid more because I'm male and stupid. And you should be paid less because you're female and tolerating it. And this is something that's got to stop. I'm a firm believer, that if you're able to do a job efficiently, and again, it's this competency thing. It's this competency thing. If you're capable of doing the job, regardless of who you are, regardless of your experience, if you're capable of doing said job and you're willing to do it for said pay, then who cares how much experience you have? But I hear so many cases where somebody applies for work and they're told, oh, you're overqualified. Myself, I'm looking at it going, if I want somebody to wait tables and they're willing to wait tables and they know how to run a restaurant, but they're willing to do the job of the waiter, I'm in an absolute bonus point here. I got somebody able to run an entire restaurant, willing to wait tables for me. I'll hire them like that, right? This idea that you're overqualified, that you're overqualified to do a job. I don't know about you, but think about it. You're building aircraft. Or you're building a building. Would you rather the person was overqualified to build that item, or would you rather they barely got past the graduation ceremony? I don't get it either there, Philip. Oh, Star, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And she's just added, that's what making gender available toilets is about. Not trying to make each other a different one. And the reality of it is gender available, it's a major topic. And I've got a very simple outlook on it, which I know a lot of people are not going to like. Okay. For me, it's real simple. Okay. Gender is a matter of physicality. Okay. To me, it's very cut and dry. Not that it's right, not that it's wrong, just my personal opinion. Okay. Now, one of the reasons why I say this is an issue of letting anger do something for you. I stay away from people because it stops me from putting my foot in my mouth all the way to my hip. Or trying to get the other one in beside it. The reality of it is you can oversimplify a problem. It absolutely can be oversimplified. And that becomes a devastating factor when you start working on power supplies. But what we have to realize is that it's a question of communication. It's a question of talking to each other and finding a balance point. Now, we are not talking about one person being right or the other one. Do I have opinions on things that I will stand my ground on? Absolutely. And I did discover a while ago, when it comes to discussions, I have no idea, Philip. I can tell you I'm one that hasn't. Philip just asked, how many people do you think have heard of Dr. Harry Benjamin? I have no idea. I certainly haven't heard of him. Of course, I don't listen to the news. I don't read up on these things. And yes, that means I'm speaking from a position of chosen ignorance. I don't know who these people are. I know what the problems are that people are running into. Okay. And I know that I'm not the only one that is speaking about this. What I do know, though, is where it comes to operating things in my world, when I talk about I'm going to treat people this way, when I'm dealing with people, if somebody phones me up, like for instance with the books that I'm writing or with the consulting I do, I don't ask them, well, how old are you? Okay, I do with consulting. Don't get me wrong. There's a reason for that, but I never question somebody if they go to buy a book. It doesn't matter to me if you're white, black, yellow, green, 3-armed, 4-legged. It don't matter to me. It's got a price on it. If you've got that price, it doesn't matter what else goes with it. I don't change prices for people. Okay, because from my standpoint, you're all equal. Shadow. Oh, there you go. Dinner's on the table. Definitely have to. Oh. Is that... Oh, yeah, that is. Okay. I will see what I can do there, Shadow. I don't actually have anything booked, but that doesn't mean things work that way. But do enjoy supper there, Shadow. Thank you so much for joining us. And guys, Shadow's just heading off. He's got a show to do. That's over at Nathan. So where the heck is my sheet? This is Nathan's show, which is where it comes on half an hour after we close down here. Okay, so this is Nathan's show. If you haven't been to the Quantum Show, absolutely head over there after we're done here, because going over there before we're done won't do you any good. He's not on until 7 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Prairie. I don't know all the different times. You guys know where it is. And half an hour after this stream ends, drop in on Nathan's show and take a look. And of course, Shadow. This is Shadow's channel. Okay. Drop in when you get a chance and take a look at the stuff he's got. Okay. But, I looked at it and went, okay, I can avoid all these delicate little conversations. But ultimately, in my opinion, if you don't say something, and I don't mean something argumentative, I don't mean looking at somebody and going, your opinion is wrong. I will tell you right now, there is not a person on the planet, there's not a soul in existence where their opinion can be wrong. Okay. There is no, your opinion, the facts you're operating under, the understanding that you're operating under can certainly be misguided. But your opinion itself cannot possibly be wrong. Okay. It's just not functionally capable. You take care, Adam. Thanks so much for joining us. And yes, I will be back. Tomorrow is Sunday. Yeah, tomorrow's Sunday, so I will be back here at 4:30. So I will see you then. And hopefully we'll see a lot of these people then. One of the things that I really took a look at before I started looking at the issue of anger was this. If something is upsetting you, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's about somebody else or it's about your own behavior or your own accomplishments, take that unfocused passion, take that feeling, and do something about it, because you're the only one in existence that can. Okay. Now, do you have to say things? Do you have to agree with everybody around you? Absolutely not. And I will tell you, just agreeing sometimes works to avoid the conflict, but it doesn't accomplish a whole lot. Okay. I have a tendency of looking at things from a very simplistic fashion in a lot of ways. I take a look at what I consider quantifiable facts of a situation. Okay, the number of churches that are out there claiming to look after the poor and the poor and the unhealthy, the sick. I saw it pointed out one day, just the other day, just a couple of years back now, but somebody had posted on Facebook. They went, "Can somebody explain to me why, when we have over 360,000 churches in the United States, and this ratio likely applies to every country, okay, can somebody explain why when we've got 360,000 churches from multiple denominations, why there are 200,000 people living on the street? If these establishments are helping the sick, are helping the poor, then why, pray tell, are these multi-billion dollar industries not getting the people off the street? If that's their claim to fame, okay, then why are they not doing it? Okay, why are we still dealing with this issue? We've got food shortages around the world. One farmer has been, and I'm just talking about the one that's come forth, has been told he cannot sell any more of his milk. He's reached his quota. Sad to say, nobody told the cattle this, so they're still producing. But why is there legislation in place that says you have to dump the milk? You're not allowed to sell it. Okay, I can certainly see an individual company going, "I've got more than I can sell, so no, I can't do anything with it." But for a country to go, "You've reached your quota of sales, you cannot do it." Oh, okay. Well, that explains that. Thank you so much, Philip. Philip just came back with an answer from something earlier. He says Harry Benjamin was a German-American endocrinologist and sexologist, widely known for his clinical work with transgender people. And, I understand the issue of, in some cases, that having to take place. But the issue, and this is where I'm not talking mindset, I'm talking physicality. Okay? Because the problem is that mindsets will change. Not always, with gender, it's a little bit more permanent. But I was an alcoholic. I was a drug addict. Does this mean I always will be one? Absolutely not. Clearly, considering I'm neither at this point. Absolutely there, Philip. And this is why I keep telling me, and Philip's just saying, I first read about him over 20 years ago. When we follow our hearts and talk to people, the scapegoats disappear. And this is why I say it is very important that we stop pointing the finger and saying the politicians are the problem, the elitists are the problem, the churches are the problem, the schools are the problem. Guys, it was pointed out decades ago. Okay, probably way more than that. When you point your finger at one person, look at the other three fingers. Even if you count the thumb, you got two going forward, three coming back. Look in your own heart and ask yourself, are you dealing with this situation, whatever it is, in a functional fashion? And this is why I say, if you're upset with yourself for not doing something or for doing something ineffectively, it is up to you to really step forward and make the change. If I'd have just given up and said my hand wasn't going to work anymore, obviously I wouldn't be using my left hand. When I say almost all things can be changed, okay, when you look at the way you see the world, okay, that is absolutely the way you're seeing it. But I found out when we're starting to talk about philosophy, about outlook on life, be honest with your communication. When you have a difference of opinion or difference of philosophy, discuss said difference of philosophy. If at the end of that discussion, you're questioning your outlook, you may have a flaw in your outlook. If you're not, then by all means stick to the one you've got. Now, yeah, and Phil says, I've got a kitten with ambiguous genitalia. I call him he because he has the coloring consistent with male cats. He's orange striped today. He's very sweet and loving too. Wonderful kitten. The thing is, and that's where this whole gender assignment started, is some humans are born with both sets. At that point, a parent has to make a choice. Okay, because trying to live as both isn't going to work well. So they do have to make a choice and sort it out. But leaving the choice to a child that doesn't even have the capacity to understand what they're going through to start with doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Hey, Ange, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And that does happen. I mean, let's face it, I've run into a lot of people, myself included, but there are a lot of people that end up being born dead, which, by the way, in my opinion, doesn't mean they were born. It means they were extracted. In my case, I was actually born alive. Of course, I was born mottled green and black, ended up in the incubator and died thereafter, very shortly thereafter. So what we're looking at here is there are times when things have to be done. But as adults today, and I do qualify adults not as, oh, you hit 18 years of age. Okay, I know kids. Like I was having a discussion with one the other day. And he came out with a brilliant idea and brilliant comment. He goes, what is going on with this whole flat earth thing? I says, what do you mean? Now the kid was not a legal adult. Okay. And I says, well, what do you mean? And the kid turns and says, well, these people that call themselves flat earthers, they all admit that every other planet is round. So what genius has turned around and decided that one planet in an entire solar system, in the entire universe, one planet is made flat? Why would they come up with this idea? Like, why would they hang on to it? Uh-oh, how you doing, Lunar? That can get a little disconcerting. Funny part about it there, Lunar, is when I'm not on stream, I will have a movie, a YouTube, a set of songs running, and do my writing at the same time. And by the way, my computer only has one speech processor. But to me, that's just plain normal. But we have to look at it and take your agitation with the world, with the way the world is. Take that agitation and really turn around and go, okay, we have to start talking about these things, but we've got to start talking about them, not just to say, I'm not happy with this. We've got to start coming up with together a functional idea as to how to modify the situation so that we are not leaving absolute chaos behind once we pass. And bad news for you all. We are all going to die. Every one of us. And the Egyptians proved it long ago. You're not taking your stuff with you. Okay. But this is why I asked right at the beginning here, what you guys see as pieces in the world that have to be smoothed out. Now, I can list off a whole pile, but in all fairness, I'm much more interested in what you guys see as situations that we've got to start finding a way to smooth out, a way to stabilize. Okay. Absolutely there, Star. This is why I said, when I came back to this world, when I came back to this life, it was to pass on a very simple message that working together, we can make this a better world. But we absolutely have to, we've got to start working on it. It cannot be left as just talking about it and just saying, I don't agree with this. Like, for instance, just to create a problem for some people. I will tell you wholeheartedly, I have no problem with people having issues around I don't identify as this, that, or the other thing. Have a happy and identify as whatever you desire. Where it comes to gender, there's only two. Okay. Don't believe me? Take a look at the people. And obviously, we have to look at it from the standpoint of taking care of this yourself. But literally look at what shows up in your gender physically. That's, in my opinion, this is what we have to stand on. Not what you identify as. I identify as a Christian. But there are people that will tell me wholeheartedly, you don't go to church, you're not a Christian. No, I don't go to church. I'm just not going to church. Okay. Oh, yeah, Philip, I absolutely agree with you. The short part of it is, Philip goes, point, it's a bad idea to go cutting on infants. Wait until they're old enough to tell us who they are. That is absolutely on the money. Okay. Who people are, and that comes right down to this whole thing. It comes all the way back into the whole idea of baptism. If you look at it, a baptism cannot take place until you are of age. You can have a dedication when you're a baby or be dedicated, but a baptism has to be done when you're of age to be able to think it through. Okay. This is just the way society has gone sour. But I am, Star goes, I don't need someone to tell me I'm wrong about what I feel because you want me to tell me what you believe. That's like focusing religion on someone, forcing religion. And that's very much the case, Star. This is why I said nobody in existence, nobody's opinion can be wrong. Okay. And it doesn't work that way. You can try and force somebody, and it can be forced through intimidation. People will give in and say, I'm just going to agree with that. YJ, we always go off topic here, or usually. So, because the topic actually started on how do you take your anger and get it to get something productive out of it. But since I'm looking at this, go ahead and go ahead and ask whatever it is you're asking. I've always said that what is going on in the chat room is what is important, not what I have to say. Okay. You're right. Soul has no gender, but the body does, and this is where the separation has to be there, Philip. Okay, is we've got to figure out what you're actually referring to. Are you talking apples or are you talking meat? Okay, it's just amazing. Like, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Everybody's entitled to their own way of looking at the world. The reason we have a government in place is to make laws and to make guidelines for society so that people with all of these different viewpoints have a guideline to work in. Oh, Okay, my apologies, YJ. I didn't actually see that come in. YJ's just asking regarding the UFO shot down over Canada yesterday. What does your intuition tell you? Man-made or non-human man-made or non-human made? Instinct. I'd be inclined to say, like, I didn't see the report at all, so I'm going very, as a cognitive standpoint, very instinctive on this. I would be inclined to say they probably did shoot down a live one. Whether they got any survivors out of it, I wouldn't bet my life on it. And I know they won't tell anybody if they did. But I'd be inclined to say there are more and more active UFOs, like legitimate off-world craft, coming into our airspace now. Okay. And therefore, shooting down one wouldn't surprise me. But I've got nothing to work with. I didn't see the video. I didn't hear about it. Nobody, until you, YJ, nobody's even brought it up to me. Yeah, I can understand that, Carl. I did the same sort of thing. I was baptized Roman Catholic as an infant, and subsequently was raised Protestant. Became through the church. I walked out of it altogether. Became agnostic. I never gave up on God. I just gave up on religion, and then turned around. And I actually did go back. I'm actually a minister for the Universal Life Church, or associated with the Universal Life Church out of California. They don't recognize it up in Canada, but there's a lot of things we don't recognize in Canada. Okay, but the reality of it is, yeah, in all fairness, Nightmare, mankind does have the capacity to shoot some ships down. Absolutely, they do. What they don't have the capacity to do is to stop the return fire. Okay, at least not most ships. Most of the ships that you see, most of the little ones, are susceptible to projectile damage. Okay, they absolutely are. The other thing you got to remember, the other thing you got to remember with the off-world craft is some of the pilots are not used to the echo that happens inside, and on occasion that can be a problem. But we absolutely have the capacity to shoot some down. What we don't have, and I will tell you this, when you've got craft in outer space that have the firing capacity to crack a planet or to obliterate a planet, mankind hasn't got a prayer of dealing with that. Okay. YJ, it was a cylindrical car size. Canadian MOD. Well, Canadian MOD dude, press briefing today. Trudeau posted that he ordered it and it was taken out by an F-22. Well, the size of it would indicate probably, if you're dealing with a car size, I'm going to have to check into it. But when you're dealing with a car-sized vehicle, they don't have the same fields and force fields to protect them. So yeah, an F-22, it's got some pretty scooping power. Okay. What do we got here? Football is asking, would an off-world craft travel in a tornado? Absolutely they can, because they've got stabilizers. You think tornadoes are bad? You should try a solar storm. By the way, guys, just a quick reminder. Okay, if you've got questions, do me a favor. Put your questions in all caps. Okay, it's kind of like waving your hand so I can find the question. not shouting. It just means, here I am, I've got a question for you. Because what's happening is I'm not seeing the actual questions. The reality of it is that when we're looking at the way the world is running, okay, and again, people are going, when is the government going to come out and say we have UFOs? Have you ever looked in the air and seen something you could not identify? Okay, at all. Okay, now I will tell you this. If you see a mosquito flying around and you cannot identify it, you're looking at a UFO, an unidentified flying object. I hope that means that was two on the same heart. Well, that'd be neat too. I'm presuming, Lunar, that means you had two heart surgeries on the same heart. Yeah, I lived in an incubator for a while, and then they decided that, I decided I wasn't happy, so I left. By the way, for those of you that can astral travel, do not astral travel from inside an incubator. They get really, really testy. Okay, the doctors do, I mean. But no. Where we go? Yeah, I remember people that had those issues. The Star's just saying she remembers baths in the kitchen sink. I remember coming, for me, the furthest back I go is I remember being in the third trimester in utero. And I know we're not supposed to remember it. But there is so much going on. People are going, when are we going to get acknowledged in the off-world community? Well, we got to get people doing one thing first. We got to get people acknowledging each other in this world, in this community. This is one of the biggest things. This is one of the biggest things we have to realize. There are 8 billion people on this planet. There is more similarity between every one of us than there are differences. It is time we start really turning around and looking at the similarities. I told people for decades that I got so fed up with the way the world was treating each other. That's why I pulled away. I did not at the time know how to cope with it. At this point, I know exactly how to cope with it. Open mouth, insert foot. Somebody's going to get upset. Okay. But the benefit will already be there. Now, this is why I tell people I will make every single person I meet happy. Okay. Some of you by showing up, most of you by getting up and leaving. Yeah, unfortunately, some of the people that are still propagating religion, I'm dang certain, we're doing it from that time frame, from the time frame of 400s. Okay, I can tell you that much, when you look at it, running a home, running a business, running a church, running a support group, they are all run exactly the same way. They all have the same principles. And this is where we have to look at the similarities. No matter who you are, no matter what your bank account, no matter who you're crawling into bed with, no matter what you identify as, there are similarities, because I lay odds that every one of you that actually wears pants puts them on one pant leg at a time. Maybe not the right leg first or the left leg first. Some of you will do one leg, then the other. Some will do the other, then the one. Some of you will put your pants on with both legs at the same time. Don't ask me where you get that coordination from. Okay, but we've got to start looking at. Yeah, no, I understand that, Star. Where are we? Did I miss something here? Probably. Oh, Philip. Philip's asked a very, very important question here. And again, guys, questions, please do me a favor, although that was a nice little side effect, or a nice little option. Philip put a picture of a kid with a emoji of a thought cloud. And he goes, why do the grown-ups keep on fighting? The grown-ups keep on fighting because they've only grown up, in my opinion, chronologically. They've gotten older, but they have not technically grown up. Oh, okay. Thank you so much for that, Star. But no, the reality is people are not paying attention to what's going on. They've looked at what went wrong in their own life or what they weren't happy. And many of them in my generation is really guilty of this. I didn't like the way I was being treated in school. I didn't like being told what I could and couldn't do. So I'm going to make sure that my kids don't have to go through that. Well done, my generation. Fabulous job. Now we've got kids with no motivation and no focus. That worked well. You know. Okay. Now, Star's just asked, what would be a good place to start practicing about connecting to communities? One of the best places to start is you narrow down your community to your neighborhood. If you're in an apartment block, start there. If you're living on a street, and I do mean you've got a house on a street, although the other applies, start talking to your neighbors. Get to know who they are. Don't worry about whether you remember their names, but do your best to. But get to find out what their concerns are, what they're working on. Just by walking by and saying hi is where you start. Okay. You know, that's the first place to start. You know, ultimately you shrink it down to your own home. Okay. The starting place is with you. Go to your home, go to the immediate community. Then as you reach out, okay, groups like this, where you come out and you actually ask questions. You don't have to have the answers. You've got to have the questions. Because I'll guarantee, if you've got a question like this one you just asked, you know, how do where's a good place to start practicing about connecting to communities? Okay, there are a staggering number of people that actually don't even get that desire to ask that and don't know how. But you start by talking to the people closest to you and talking to them and listening to them. You know, I mean, I had a situation the other day. Somebody asked me a question. I went to answer the question and they cut me off. And so I just looked at them and said, I'm done. What? I'm not allowed to my own opinion? I said, you're perfectly allowed your own opinion. Just not in the middle of when you ask the question. Oh yeah, the number of kids that I've been to a medical facility, like I've been to a hospital. I don't go there now because I can't tolerate them, but it's got nothing to do with the kids. But most kids are screaming because they don't know what's going on and they're begging for answers. This is something that was mentioned the other day. Somebody came out, a kid came out from the States, and he goes, I just want people to know most of these school shootings are not because the kids want to hurt people. He says most of the school shootings are because people are not listening to the kids and they're screaming for attention. Okay, they're screaming to be heard. And this is what we have to do here is we have to take a look at it and bring these issues to light. You know, the best I can tell you from my standpoint, Star, and I am not an herbalist, so this is just my opinion with no herbological or medicinal background. From what I understand, milk thistle is very beneficial from it. The chlorophyll will absolutely help. What have we got here? This is cute. You know, Philip's just going into a number of different diagnoses. Okay. Now, the nice little part about it, from my standpoint, I've had 3 independent psychiatrists that have all told me the same thing. Mentally, I'm perfectly fine. Okay. Except my temper. You know. So the reality of it from that, okay, from the reality of this world is we have to start looking at it, and we've got to bring these issues to rational attention. But I do not mean just point out this is a problem. Come to an idea, not a solution. Okay, an idea of what a solution may be, so we can start working on these issues. Okay, because one person is not going to do it. Okay, this is something, all of these things that we're talking about have to be done on a societal level. Now, you know, that's just the reality behind it. And what we have to look at, okay, what do we got here? Yeah, no doubt there, Lunar. You know, drug addict, you know, unfortunately, I walked down the road of drug addiction. I walked out of it on my own without withdrawals and without side effects. This is not a real not a functional way for most people. Yeah, Luna goes, why is the Children's Hospital located in a high-rise building in SF? I suspect that's San Francisco. You know, I mean, it's amazing. The layout of the building, again, it's a question of functionality, and that one's a massive issue. And I'm no architect. I just look at it from a simple standpoint on that end. Hey, D-Worm, how you doing? Glad you could join us. You know, I'm going to mention this again. I do it once in a while. But if you do like the stream, do me a favor and give us a thumbs up. Okay. You know, give us a thumbs up. And do please hit the subscribe button to the channel. Okay. The reason I'm looking at the subscription level is my understanding is when I get to 1,000, YouTube starts paying me. Okay. My important factor for me is simple. We have to start working together as a society, as peoples of the same planet. Okay. In order to make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, there are going to be those that are not happy. Okay, there are going to be those of you that do not desire, that do not desire this world to change because, some of my material stuff will go away. I won't have as much money. Well, it's great having a lot of money, but I like the way one person put it to me. He goes, I've been miserable rich and I've been miserable poor. Hands down, I would rather be miserable rich. Okay, myself, it's simple. I require a certain amount of money to survive, but that surplus for me is going to certain places. I know how that feels there, Joe. Joe just says my diet is nowhere near healthy. I figure my diet is quite good. If it ain't moving, it's up for grabs. I have been doing a lot more, like yesterday when we start talking about diet and what have you. Yesterday, well, no, not yesterday. This morning, I got up and made a slow cooker worth of beef fried rice. Cooked it all up, fresh vegetables. The rice wasn't exactly fresh, but hey, we get it the way we get it, right? And fresh vegetables, hamburger. Cooked the whole thing up. Right now, I've got 10 meals sitting in the freezer that I can just pull out when I'm ready for them, pop them in the mic, and away I go. Okay. Oh, there we are. Now, well, that's okay. The reality there, Joe, if you're happy, if you're content with it, that's what matters. If you're not content with it, then it's time to start ending it. Okay. I haven't quite figured out what a breakfast food is, Philip. In my eyes, it's simple. The first meal of the day is my breakfast. Now, the other day this morning I had beef fried rice. Yesterday I ended up with cereal. Day before, bacon, or not bacon and eggs, but I had eggs and tuna. But I've also been known to eat lasagna and or beans for breakfast because to me it's simple. That is the meal I break my fast with. And the funny thing about it is most of the other societies I run into, human societies are weird that way. They go, this is a breakfast meal. Okay. Now I love the farmer's idea of steak and eggs. I will tell you this, YJ. One of the best things that I use is I'm actually taking hawthorn berry, like natural, professionally made hawthorn berry syrup for my heart, and it has worked wonders. Okay. It has done a staggering job for me. I think that's a great idea there, Carl, personally. To me, it's very simple. When we're talking about and the thing is, for somebody to say that, the chicken and rice is not a breakfast meal, did you eat it for breakfast? Did you eat it for the first meal of the day? The answer is, yeah, you did. Okay. I value you're lying to us, and just somehow I just can't see that happening. Well, I will caution you there, Philip. If you can add milk to it, it's probably a breakfast food. You can add milk to hamburger. I'm thinking this may not be a good move. Okay, in my eyes. Of course, I added ketchup to ice cream because I figured somebody said it was good. I'll give it a shot. I didn't know that was a song there, Lunar. See, what I do is I take canned soup because I don't know how to do the broth properly. So I'll take canned soup, preferably something like clam chowder or a beef, something with a thicker gravy to it. Even mushroom soup, and they'll add stuff to it. But I have taken to actually going and getting actual vegetables, which I haven't done consistently in 30 years. See, I used to do it this way there, Lunar. Because of the lifestyle I had, I'd be sipping once, sipping twice, then falling down. Yeah, but that's what my dad used to say about his. Only his wasn't in beer belly because Dad didn't drink. He did when he was younger, don't get me wrong. What have we got up here? I missed something, obviously, but that's okay. Now, isn't a breakfast of champions, isn't that chocolate, isn't that beer in a chocolate bar? Of course, I didn't like beer or chocolate, so I avoided that particular meal. Yeah, I've had that before. YJ just goes, last night I was exhausted and hungry and made canned chicken dumpling soup with stir-fry parquet noodles. With stir-fry parquet noodles in it. It was terrible and I ate it anyway. I've done that before. Okay. I have done that before. You make something, it's like, this is just gross. I've got two containers of said gross in the freezer. So I got to find a way to modify them so they're not quite so gross. And I'm thinking if I get a decent soup broth, I'll be able to add them to it, and that'll take the gross away. I hope. Oh, thank you, D-Worm. I still didn't like beer or chocolate. I still don't like either to speak of. See, I drink beer usually about once a week or so. But do be clear on this. I drink root beer. Okay, it's still beer. I did have the luck of trying out sassafras a couple of years back. That's good, but I can't get it up here. But on that note, guys, again, if you like the stream, do give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of it. Okay, I've got to bring this to a close for two reasons. One, we're just over the 2-hour mark here. We're hitting 6:30. Okay. We are hitting 6:30, so I will be back again tomorrow. I'm going to try and join Nathan today if he wants me there. But I will be back again tomorrow from 4:30 to 6:30 tomorrow night. Okay, until then, people, thank you so much for joining me. I really can't thank you enough effectively. But thank you so much for joining me. And until we meet again, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.